Hi, it's me again. We're on to, I think, video 4 of our little series, working on building a project management tool on the Salesforce platform, just for laugh. Yeah, this is going to be a fairly short one, I think. Just kind of a bit of tidying up, a bit of finessing, a little bit of fettling, I suppose one might say. Just tidying up the edges a little. So here we have our project object, our page for a project, but there's a couple of things that I'm not entirely happy about. So for example, it defaults to the related tab. If I want to see the details of the project, I have to go to the details tab. It would be kind of nice if it would show the details by default and we could click through to see the related stuff if we needed to. So that's one thing. Another thing is that when I add a new team member, okay, I kind of have to describe the team member myself. So I have to say David, the PM, for example, project manager, not prime minister. Obviously, no one's going to give me that job. That'd be crazy. But you know, I have to sort of type in a title, and it would be nice if it would, for example, pick up the role if we don't have a user yet, and put the user in if the user is known. So it says, you know, David, or David Secules, obviously, if it knows that that's the user that's been assigned, and if all we know is the role, then it should just say project manager, yeah, as the description for this role, so that when we look at our list of team members, it will say the name of the person if the person is known. Otherwise, it will just give the role instead. I think that might be quite a handy thing to do. So let's see how we would do that. Let's tackle the first thing first, which is rearranging the page. Okay, very easy. Just go up to the setup menu at the top here, and believe it or not, edit page. I know. Who would have thought? So when we get to the page editor, or the Lightning app builder, we can see that. Okay, go away. This is the layout of the page that we were looking at before. So what I can do is I can basically look at the tabs. So if I click on one of these two tabs here, I can see that tab section, the properties of that tab section comes up here, and it's defaulting at the moment to. Okay, it says it's defaulting to the details tab, which I didn't think it was, but okay, it does default to details, and I'm just going to put the details tab first out of the two of them. Okay, so it will have the details tab on the left and then related on the right, and it will default to details. That just sort of feels neater to me. So that's the first thing to do. Now, when you first save a page like this, you kind of have to activate it. And to keep things simple, I'm going to activate this as the org default for any platform, and just save that. Okay. You can actually have different default page layouts for different user profiles or for different record types and so on, but again, because this is a fairly quick little project, and the idea is to make it as general as possible so as many people as possible can use it, we're just going to keep things simple. So no record types for projects, and we're not having different page layouts for different user profiles. It's just going to be nice and easy. So there, that should have done that. So that being saved, I did click on save, yes I did. When I go back, we should see, and we do the details tab first and the related tab after it. Okay, good. So the other thing I wanted to do was on the team member, I wanted the team member name to be updated to give the role if the user isn't known, and the username if they are. Okay, and the simplest way of doing that is using a flow. So again, for that I'm going to need to go to the setup. This was already open, so that's this cog up at the top here, setup, that takes you to the setup menu. And then within setup, I'm looking for flows. Now I can just scroll down to find the process automation section, and then within there I'll find flows, or if you don't know where things are, quick find, type in flows, and it will find that for you. There you go. Looks like we already have some flows set up on here, but we're going to set up a new one now, and that's going to be a new flow. Okay, starting from scratch, and it's going to be a record triggered flow. So this is going to be a flow that basically is launched automatically. okay, based on an update or the creation or whatever of a record. So I'm going to click on create. Okay, so first off, dismiss this. What type of record are we triggering on? Well, it's going to be based on the team member. Okay, so when the team member is updated, we want to update the name of the team member record. So I'm going to look for team member. There we are. And I want this to happen whenever the record is created or updated. Okay, and the entry conditions are basically going to be if we can only really set the name if we know the role or the name of the user. Okay, now the user may not be set because we might be saying we need a project manager, but we don't know who the project manager is yet. But we will always know what the role is, okay, because we've made the role a required field. So therefore, it should be okay to say that the entry criteria is that the role is empty or is null, and that is false. Okay, so if the role being null is false, then that means that the role is not false. The role is not null. Okay, and the key thing here is we are going to optimize this for a fast field update. Okay, this basically means that this flow will run before Salesforce writes the record into the database. Okay, which means that we can change values on the record itself really quickly. Okay, so essentially, while Salesforce still has this record in its memory, it can change values on it before it writes it to the database. Okay, when it updates information into the database, that's a slightly more long-winded process, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. It has to do things in a certain order, and it has to check whether the thing that it's writing is affecting something else, and has to do all formula fields and all this other stuff. So doing a flow that waits until after all that's happened kind of takes longer. Okay, whereas if you can, but it does allow you to do a lot of other things. So if there are certain things like you want to send an email as a result, then you're using the actions and related records type of flow. But in this case, all we want to do is change a value on the record itself before we write it. So we can do it as a fast field update, and it means that it'll be essentially instantaneous. You won't even notice a lag on it. Okay, so it's fast field updates, and that should be pretty much our trigger. And what are we doing with this? What we are doing with this is that we are going to update the triggering record. Yeah. And this is going to say update the team member name field. Okay. And we're updating the team member record that triggered the flow, so that's nice and easy. The filter conditions, we're not going to filter this, we're just going to do it. And actually, no, maybe it'd be better off if we actually do this using a formula. So I'm going to say if the name does not equal, then I'm going to create a formula field. Okay, so that's a new resource of type formula, and this is going to be the new name. Okay, now the idea is if we have edited the record, if we only had the role before, but we've now added a user, okay, then the name that we want it to have has changed, because instead of being just the role, it's now going to be the username. So the value of the name field that we want is different from the value of the name field that we already have. So therefore, this formula field is going to be the name that we want it to have, and if the name that it currently has is different from the one that we want it to have, then we need to do the update. If the two names are the same, we're not making a change, so we don't actually need to do the update. That's it. So it won't update the last updated date and all that sort of thing. There are reasons for not making a change if you don't have to make a change. So in this case, the formula field for the new name that we want, the formula that we want is called new name, and it's going to be if is blank, and then we want the user ID field, or the user field. So if the user field is blank, then we want to return the text value of the role field. So that's the record role. Okay. We have to say text of role because the role field is actually a pick list. So it's a pick list value, and you have to convert that to a text value to use it in this formula like this. So if the user field is blank, then we want to return the text of the role. Otherwise, we want to return the name of the user, which means that we want to return record user first name, and space and record user last name. There we go. And we close the bracket, and yeah, that should be it. So check syntax to make sure that, oh, didn't like that at all. From the result was type text. Oh yes, of course I need to tell that it's returning text. Hadoy. So there we go. Yeah, that's valid. Okay. So just to recap, because I didn't explain this very well as I started. The resource is a formula. The formula is going to be called new name. It returns text, and the way the formula works is that it looks at the user field on the record, which is to say on the team member record, and if the user field isn't filled in, so if the user field is blank, then it returns the text value of the role. Otherwise, it returns the user's first name and a space, and then the user's second name. Easy enough? I think so. Again, you click on check syntax, and what it'll do is just make sure that this is structured correctly, that I haven't got too many open brackets or too many closed brackets, or I'm not using a pick list field where I should be using a text value, or whatever. That's worked. So if I click on done, then we have a formula that represents the name that we want this record to have. Okay, so here we have filter conditions saying if the name field on the record is not equal to the new name that it should have, then we want to update the name field with the formula for the new name. It's that easy. Yeah. If the name is already the same as the name should be, then that's not going to meet these conditions, so it won't make this update. So it's only going to make the update if there's a need to change the name, and that's the way that works. Okay, so if I click on save, and I am going to call this team member set name. Okay, description sets the name of a team member record as appropriate. You can put in a better description yourself if you feel like typing. Full stop. Yeah, click on save. And that's that done. I mean, that's really, in this case, it's a very, very, very easy flow. Very simple, not much to it. And that should really be all there is to it, in fact. Now, before I activate it, it's always a good idea to test these things. So if I go to my project and I look at my team member, here we go. This record here, handy tip, the ID of this team member record, you'll find that on the URL. This is a really cool thing about Salesforce, is the URL of a record is also its ID, or rather the other way around, the ID can be the URL. So if I copy this, that's this section here, these 18 characters, always 18 characters, that defines, that's the ID of this record, this joining object between that project and that user. Yeah. So using that ID, I can go back over to my flow and I can debug it. Okay, so I can run the flow as if the record has been updated. Okay, and I'm going to actually, yes, of course I don't need to copy the ID, because I can just look for the record in this list.
if you're passing the ID in as a parameter, then it's useful to copy the ID, because then you can paste it in at the beginning of this. But never mind. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to change the hourly rate to 101. That's enough of a change for it to essentially trigger the flow. I think should be. So if I click on Run, okay, and so we can see here that it's completed. So the flow ran, it started, it did the thing, and then it ended. How did the thing go? Well, the start condition requirements were met. Okay, the role was not null, so it ran, and then it updated the records. So conditions to update the record: the name does not equal the value that it should have for the name. So therefore, it went off and it said that it has updated it, and we can see update the records fields name equals new name, which is David Seckley's. Okay. Then, because this is a debug, it's then rolled it back. Okay. So it hasn't actually made the change. If I go back to this record and do a refresh, you'll see that the name field hasn't actually updated. Yep, it's still got the same value. But when it kind of ran through it as if it was going to do it, it all worked as we would have expected it to. Now, normally we would do more testing and some more thorough stuff, but to be honest, can't be bothered right now. So I'm just going to activate this. There we go. And now if I go into this record and I change the hourly rate for reals, there we go, and save. Look, team member name changed. Okay, now if we didn't actually know the user, all we know is that we need a project manager. Okay, so the user field is now empty. All we know is that we need a project manager. Click on save. Now this team member is called project manager. So when I look at the project, the list of team members that we need are going to be project manager, and as we add users to these roles, it will update the team member name to be the name of the person. Yeah, see how that's working. So yeah, that's that. The next thing that might be quite useful is to be able to add a team member without giving it this name first. Okay, and I'm not sure this is going to work. I haven't actually tested it yet, but hey, let's find out together. The trouble is, if I click on New here, the team member name field is a required field. I can't sort of just let it fill it in. If I know that as well as the project manager, we're also going to need an architect. Okay, I can't just say we're going to need an architect. That's all I know, and then click on save. Or it's an architect, and they're going to be charged at £95 an hour. Then click on save, because that field is required. I have to put something in there. It can be anything, because when I save it, it's going to overwrite that with the role, but I do have to type something into that field. So in order to get past that, I think we can get away with an action. Let's find out together, shall we? So if I go back to the object manager and I look for the team member object, okay, in amongst all these menus on the side here, we've got buttons, links, links, and actions. There we go. Okay. No, not on team manager. I'm on team member. I'm wrong. It's on the project, because I actually want to be adding a team member to the project. So on the project, again, we want a buttons, links, and actions, and we're going to do a new action. And the new action is going to be create a record, okay, and the object we want to create is a team member, okay, and we're going to have a label which is add team member. There we go. Okay, we do not need to create a feed item, no, but we should have a success message which says team member added successfully. Exclamation mark, because it's an achievement. And then we click on save. Okay, so when we click on add team member, this is the layout that's going to come up, and it's going to have the name and the project and the role. Okay, now we do not want the project. The reason it's come up with these fields by default is because those are the required fields. Okay, it needs project, that's a required field because that's a master detail relationship to the project object, and then the role and the team member name. Name is always a required field. Every record has to have a name, and the role just is a required field. We've marked that one as a required field. So
so these are the fields which are actually required, and then these are the other fields that also exist. Now what I would quite like to do is to take off the name. I don't want to have to specify that, so I'm going to remove it. And I'm also going to remove the project, because we can define that from the project that we're clicking the button on. Okay, we can say when you click the button, fill the project ID into the project field. So we don't need to prompt for that. We can take that off. Okay, so actually what we need is the role. We should put in the user, in case we do know the user, and we should also put in the hourly rate. There we go. So that's the role that they're going to fill. This is the person if we know it, and this is the hourly rate. And you know what? I'm going to put the hourly rate above. No, I'm going to leave the hourly rate there. It doesn't really matter. So that's a good start. So if I click on save, it's going to warn us that we've got a couple of required fields that are not on the layout, and that's going to be a problem. Okay, but all we need to do is set default values for the project and the team member name. So I'm going to click on yes. And then down here I'm going to say predefined field values, and I'm going to say first of all the predefined value for the project field is going to be insert field, and it's going to be from the project. Where is the project ID, record ID, bam. So this is the ID field from the project. Insert that. There you go. That's the default value for the project field. Easy, yeah? Don't really need to check syntax, but I'm going to do it anyway. And look, it's green, that's fine. Click on save. So we've filled that in. The other thing is the name. So if I click on new, here we go. So new predefined field for add team member. This time the field name that we're filling in is the team member name. And the value we're going to give it is just new. Okay, and that's enough. It just needs a value, because then the flow is going to come along and populate that with the value that we actually want. So there we are. That should be all we need. The only other thing that we're going to need to do is to go, we will click on page layouts, we'll find the project layout, there we go, and under this section here, okay, we can override the mobile and lightning experience actions, okay, and put in our own actions. So under mobile and lightning actions, the one that we're really interested in is add team member. I'm going to put that at the beginning of the list. Quite a lot of these aren't necessary. I don't currently have time to tidy them up. I'll do that later off the screen. So save that. There we go. And if I return to the project, there we go. And there's our button to add the team member. Yeah. So if you remember, this is our related list of team members. We've already got a project manager and an architect. Who else should be on the team? So I'm going to add a team member, and I'm going to add a business analyst. We always use a business analyst. We don't know who it is yet, but we know that we're going to be charging 80 quid an hour for them. And then we click on save. Okay, so we've got a new business analyst, and it's already filled in the name for us. Hey, hey. Now, if we happen to know that the project manager is going to be me, then I can edit this record, and I can change the user value to me, and then click on save. Okay, and look, lo and behold, that link now says my name instead of just the role. That worked. And if I create a new team member, and we know that the role is, this is another business analyst, but this time we happen to know that it's going to be Terry that's going to be filling that, and because Terry's really good, he's actually earning 150 an hour. That guy. Click on save, and we can see that it filled in Terry's name straight away. Okay, so there you go. That seems to be working. That was our first little bit of automation. How cool is that? So yeah, that's that. There will be more to come, but yeah, look forward to that. I hope you do, and I hope you've enjoyed this and found it useful. And I will see you soon. Bye. Take care.